We should be live now. Hello, everyone. We just wanted to have a quick conversation with a decorated veteran, uh, a men's rights activist, and a stalwart in his own regard, Mr. Bill Corbitt, aka alias would be Mr. Veteran Father. So, sir, uh, uh, welcome to our show. And first of all, I have to say, although insipid as it might sound, thank you for your service for these ungrateful people and this ungrateful nation that has been bestowed upon us to do the heavy lifting for the quote unquote greater good of the society, as the Jordan Petersons of the world used to enunciate every once in a while. So, the floor is yours, sir. Please.
Sure. Well, thank you. Um, I have been following my brothers out of India for a while, and I follow brothers off other continents as well. I'm trying to get a grasp of the different trials and tribulations men across the globe are running into. I must say, I admire the men's groups out of India very much. I've been able to safely say I have a lot of respect for you, a tremendous amount of respect. You're much more advanced in your organization and your tenor than men in America are. Probably because it's worse for you, but also probably because your population is 5 times the size of U.S. population. Let's just say that we're 320 some odd million. You're, I think, 1.5 billion. So there's a correlation there, I think. So veteran fathers, what is veteran fathers? So let me clear up some confusion real quick. The official name of our nonprofit is the Foundation for the Parental Rights for Veteran Fathers. So that's the official name. Our domain registry is veteranfathers.com. We're not just for veteran fathers. Okay. We chose veteran fathers because veteran fathers got this started. That's the only reason. But also, too, if you understand business, you'll understand that a nonprofit is actually an LLC. And from that, when you're a veterans organization, you get certain identifiable benefits of being a veterans organization. So it was a business decision. That's all. To the ladies out there, when you look at this organization, and I'm speaking about veteran fathers as an organization that only champions men, um, you're wrong. You're very, very wrong. The main purpose of what I believe men do, and I know what we do here at Veteran Fathers, is children. That's it, children. Because when you're a victim of abuse, whether it's legal abuse, emotional or physical abuse, the party that suffers the most and the longest is children. And when victims aren't properly cared for, when the law doesn't properly administer towards the victim, the child suffers the most. So if you're a woman and you look at this, well, there's just out there for men, and what about me? I'm a woman. Take a step back, breathe, relax, and look at it this way. Women have everything. Men have nothing. Men don't have rights. And I speak about this often. Men have privileges because when a right of one gender supersedes that gender, it's no longer a right, it's a privilege. Rights are equal and administered equally and fairly among all genders, but they're not. Men in America are slow to come to this. I posted a recent video where women were laughing that men aren't smart enough to realize they have to fight for their rights. And I'm going to publish a secondary video to that because they're correct. They're having fun with it, but they're correct. Men in America have not come to the stark realization that our rights are not guaranteed unless we fight for them. So, how do we fight for them? What do we do? So, when we started Veteran Fathers, we spent 5 years of research building this business model. And in that 5 years of research, we looked at everything. We set up pseudonyms. We entered into chat channels. We learned about red pill and MGTOW, which we didn't know anything about at the time. We took a look at the research that was out there. We took a look at the data. We took a look at all the activist organizations for men, and we came up with this model that doesn't work. Activism for men doesn't work. Men have been actively engaging with legislators and media to get rights guaranteed and protected, and we've lost ground. And that's been men have been doing this for about, I think our latest research is over 100 years. So we've been doing it for over 100 years, but nothing's changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. What are men not doing? Well, when we were doing all the research, I'm originally from the IT field, a former federal agent here in the States as well. Um, I got aggravated one night on a Zoom call with, I pulled together a bunch of IT researchers, big data analysts, a bunch of very smart dudes. And we were just compiling, I think we put together close to a petabyte of data. We just gobbled up everything and we were analyzing it and going through it. I just got aggravated one night and I said, screw it. We just need to sue these people. I didn't use a nice term, but we just need to sue these people. And I hung the phone up. A month later, we got on the call and I said, okay, we spent another month looking at this. I need an answer, guys. And one of the gentlemen on the phone said, Bill, you said it. I said, well, wait a minute. I say a lot of crazy stuff. What did I say? They said, men are not litigating. And I was like, oh my God, it's that obvious. Over the last 65 years here in America, women have successfully litigated. And what does that do? Well, it changes laws, gets you laws and support and help, but it also changes sentiment. And here's how it works. Here in America, we're a constitutional republic with democratic processes. In a constitutional republic, you're a nation governed by a set of laws, much like India. Okay. But those laws aren't being properly applied. When the women figured this out about 65 years ago, they started suing. That's right, civil litigation, started suing the states, started suing organizations and companies and individuals, and they won a lot. I mean, we tracked hundreds of cases directly attributed to women's rights activists. And from that, it changed legislation. From that, they got funding. From that, they got wealthy. I mean, their attorneys definitely got wealthy. But these organizations, these women's organizations, grew in wealth and power from lawsuits. Some of those lawsuits resulted into criminal prosecutions. Men aren't doing that. So when we started Veteran Fathers about 2 years ago this November, we're the first and only organization that I know of on the planet Earth that is specifically set up to wage what we affectionately call guerrilla lawfare. Let me explain this. We have two swim lanes. One is to wage guerrilla lawfare. So what's our battlefield? Our battlefield is the courts. If you filter through all the noise, you filter through, the rights violations, you filter through everything, societal norms, everything in the media, get rid of all the noise. You start getting down to the core, what I often refer to as the root of the problem, the absolute core of the apple. It's the courts. If we fix the courts, we fix the problem because men are reacting to the symptom. So if you go to a doctor and you say, I'm not feeling good, I'm sick, I got problems. You tell him what the problems are. He analyzes the symptoms to get to the root cause of what's giving you those symptoms. And the doctor treats the root cause. He doesn't treat the symptom. He'll give you antidotes to help with the symptoms. Like if you're in pain, he'll give you some pain medication and stuff like that. But if it's an infection, he'll give you an antibiotic because he's treating the root. He's not treating the symptom. So we looked at this like military men, but we also looked at this like physicians. What's the root problem? The root problem of all of this. And you can have an argument with me if you want. You'll lose. The root problem that will fix all the symptoms is the courts. So how do you fix the courts? You have to wage guerrilla lawfare. You have to put judges, attorneys, and officers of the court, including law enforcement officers, in prison. You have to go completely all the way through sentencing. Why? If you talk to the lay person, they'll tell you you can't put a judge in jail. If you talk to a judge, the judge will tell you, I live in fear of going to jail. I live in fear that someone will figure out what I have done is a violation of law. From that, in America, they'll proceed to a court, ask to have my judicial immunity stripped, and then sue me as an individual in abject poverty. From that, if there's a collection of enough data in that civil lawsuit, it will now be combined in a criminal suit and prosecution. Judges live in fear of that. Hmm. So if judges know, why don't people know? It's because we have digested and we've consumed that negative narrative that you can't put a judge in jail. We've consumed, oh, they got prosecutorial immunity. They've got absolute immunity. They've got, partial immunity for law enforcement. People, that's the most misinformation campaign I've ever heard in my life because that can be removed. There's a process set up to remove that. Is it easy to remove it? Depends on what the judge has done. Can it be done? It's done all the time, actually. There's a case out of West Virginia where they just stripped a family court judge of their judicial immunity, and they're going to sue that judge in abject poverty and possibly go with criminal prosecution on the case. So it can be done. So that narrative falls on deaf ears now because when somebody knows it can be done and you're telling them it can't be done, what's the solution? The solution is you. You're the problem, not me, because I know it can be done. I've seen the case law that says, yes, it can be done and it is successful. But you're telling me, a knowledgeable person, it can't be done. I now realize you are the problem and you need to change how you think. It's up here. Men live in fear. So, how do we overcome the fear? The second swim lane we have at Veteran Fathers is Daddy's House. It's a DV shelter for men. In the United States, there's 2,000 DV shelters for women. I have an article on Medium that outlines all of this. Men only have two in America. So why is DV shelter so vitally important? Well, it goes back to our 5 years of research. And when you're a researcher, you always dig down through the research and you find the root of the evidence they've collected. Where does the raw data come from? And it came from what we could figure out the typical sources. It comes from surveys, it comes from government organizations doing viable research like in the NIS-4, but it also comes from DV shelters. So that means in America, women have 2,000 data collection points, men only have two. Now you understand the data disadvantage men have. And it wasn't until the 90s when IT started getting big and IT people started looking at this data and they said, wait a minute, you're not normalizing your data. If men only collect from 2 points and you're collecting from 2000, yeah, no wonder you have all this data. Men are bad, evil people. But you got to normalize. You can only collect from two of substantial size gathering points from men. So two men's DV shelters with 25 beds, you got to collect from two women's DV shelters with 25 beds. That's normalization of data. Oh, now you're starting to see a change in the analytics. Now you're starting to see a change in professional demeanors. Now you're starting to see a change in the research. That's men pushing back with logic, not emotion, but facts, data, and evidence. And now with Daddy's House, my ultimate goal and dream is to put Daddy's House across the globe, bring them all under one umbrella. Why? Because now we have a centralized source of funding. We're looking to set up one here in Atlanta. That will be the headquarters for all global Daddy's Houses. We can put one in every single country, every single city on the globe. We can put one, and we'll run it right here out of Atlanta, Georgia. What a beautiful thing to know that, wait a minute, they all fall under one venue, one guidance, run by men, organized by men, overseen by men who can now adequately make sure that the shelters are properly funded and staffed and support men. What a beautiful thing. Often hear arguments or discussions about, well, you got to be careful. The women will infiltrate you. And they have. Women's organizations and groups have infiltrated successfully DV shelters. One in particular was out of Canada, and the guy ended up hanging himself, committed suicide because he got no support from men. So, what's the solution? Men need to understand this, and this is very important. And if you're taking notes, write this down. And it's in Latin in our logo. We must unite and fight or perish alone. But what do we unite under? Men are going all kinds of different directions, and that's by design. Our governments want men separated. But the way I look at men is like fingers on a hand. They each do their individual thing. But when men get organized and they come together, they form a fist. And what do you do with that fist? You go to war. You wage guerrilla warfare. Until we can start pulling these different organizations together and form this fist and fight, we're going to continue to rack losses. And the women are laughing at us. They are. It's already been out there. Women are laughing. They don't laugh behind our backs anymore. They laugh to our face. How does that make you feel as a man? How does that make you feel as a mother of a son? See, this ain't about men. This is about children. How does it make you feel as a mother of a son that your son is going to enter society as an adult with no rights, only privileges? That is scary as fuck, if you ask me. So, how do we fix this? We have to wage guerrilla lawfare in the courts. We have to partner with law firms and smart attorneys to understand that these judges, attorneys, and officers of court have violated law and they must go to prison. We have to come to that understanding. We have to sue states because here in America, we have laws that say, well, wait a minute, you funded women's DV shelters, but you've not funded male DV shelters. You can't do that. It's against the law. You have to fund them equally. Oops. States violated law. Not only that, they violated federal and state law. Big civil suit. Easy win. Easy win. Unless the judge is taking bribes and kickbacks or the judge is a communist. That's the vernacular men have to use. We have to use strong language. We have to be very direct. And we have to use language that the courts are uncomfortable with. No judge wants to be called a communist, not in America. No judge wants to be called a Marxist. Why? Because now people understand, wait a minute, you're calling him a Marxist and a communist? Why? Because he's a dictator. He's ruling outside the governance, the proper administration of law. Men have to use strong language. Men have to be very direct. Men have to be very precise in everything they say and think it out. Why? Because the feminists will rip us to shreds if we don't. But men have evolved. You can see it in the discussions online. Men say women are more violent. Women go, no, no, we're not. You're making that up. And boom, boom, boom. We get them with research data and facts. They go, oh, stop, quit it. No, no, no. I'm going to keep pounding you with facts, data, evidence, and research because you're part of the narrative that's the problem, that's removing my rights. And I won't allow you to remove my rights. So, what makes veteran fathers special and unique? There's an organization here in America we call the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. We built our bylaws on the same construct of the ACLU. We can put a veteran fathers organization anywhere in America, in any city, in any country on the globe. Only thing you need to report back to headquarters on is twice a year. You have to go through a semi-annual and annual audit. That's it. You're responsible for your own governance. You have to follow the headquarters governance as your initial sets of bylaws. And we've already got that in place. We already got the websites, trademarking, copywriting, logoing, everything's set for you. We'll put you as a tag on our website if you want to set up your own organization in a city in Atlanta or maybe in Mumbai. And what does that give you? Organization. Remember these fingers? When they're out there, they don't form this. When you bring these fingers together, you form this. Now we can fight. And how does that work globally? Well, it's very easy. Because you set up an office in Mumbai, for instance, you're responsible for your own donations, you're responsible for your own marketing, you're responsible for your own lawsuits. That's right. So, how does a lawsuit get sponsored by veteran fathers? One is we got to make sure we have the funding in our legal war chest. That's why donations are critical. And once we have the funding, I bring into my counsel with me and a peer, and we go through the cases that we have submitted. And the best case goes up to the board. The board votes on this. Yes, we'll sponsor this case. From that, we take that case, we put it together in what we call a prosecutorial summary. And we submit that case to law firms who are working those, and they pick if they want to handle the case or not. And once they pick the case, we'll discuss funding and compensation for them because you have to understand attorneys run a business. They got a mortgage, they got to keep the roof over their head, they got kids in school, you got car notes they have to pay for too. It's a business. So let's treat it like a business. Let's act like businessmen. So, how do we get donations? Look at it this way There are 7.5 million single fathers in America. What if one father donated $1? It isn't so much the money. That's $7.5 million. It isn't so much the money. Think about the beautiful message that sends. Veteran Fathers just got $7.5 million in donations from 7.5 million fathers. Oh my God. Now media starts to pay attention. Now all those politicians are going to start side eyeing us, going, what in the world's going on over there? What did we miss? That's how all this works. Remember the fingers on the hand. Don't ever forget that. It's a Japanese proverb, actually. So if men organized, we're very powerful. Not only that, but everybody knows men in business that are wealthy. Why not go to them and say, you know what? Let's donate to veteran fathers. If you don't want to donate to the legal war chest, donate to the DV shelter. There's tax credits in it if you do. And that's a very good thing you're donating towards. It's a beautiful cause. It's about kids. How can you walk away from a child that's a victim? Because the children, if the father's a victim, so is the child. You're walking away from child victims. Right now, I'm working on a research article that I'm going to put up on Medium that very definitively shows women are predominantly the abusers of male children. How sad is that? That the research here in America shows that a peaceful country now has to live in fear that mothers of male children stand about a 75% overwhelming odds of abusing that child. Not men, women. That is catastrophically massive. And when that article comes out, oh, people will hate on me. People will say, you're a bad person, Bill. Don't hate on me. I'm just parroting what the research says. I spend the time going through the volumes of data and putting together this information for you in short form so you can go pull it out. There it is right there. It's definitive. And it's referenced. And the reference for APA citations. It's all valid. So why are they fighting? It's because they don't care about victims. Think about that. There's no difference between a female victim and a male victim. None. A victim is a victim. So, and I often say this, you have a choice to make in your life. Do you want to support the victim or the abuser? You walk into a conference room and there's a table there. There's chairs on both sides of the table. There's not a chair in the middle of the table. Do it as your own social experiment. Get to the meeting early, put a chair in the center of the table and back off and watch that room. When people enter the room, they'll take the chair off and they'll put it on either side of the table. That is people that can't decide what they want. They can't decide if they're going to support the abuser or the victim. I will put you, if you want your chair in the center of the table, I will take it off the table and I'll put you on the side of the abuser. Here's why. Inaction is actually an action. So if you don't want to go out and support victims of domestic violence, you are actually, through your inactivity, supporting the abuser. Very true. Now, for you ladies, you're going to pop up and you're going to say, but what about me? What about the case I went through? Your individual case does not in any way, shape, or form undermine the key data and research that says, in large, women are abusive towards male children. It doesn't subvert you are not a victim. It just subverts the messaging men are trying to get out there to educate people. And you're doing it intentionally. Stop it. Just stop it. Women already have everything. And I posted this meme. I have a daughter. She's about to be 7 years old. I don't have to worry about her. She has everything. If I had a boy child, he has nothing, not one single thing. He has a privilege. He doesn't have rights. My daughter has everything. She's got rights guaranteed under existing legislation that's immediately enforceable. She has laws, Women's Against, I think it's called Women Against Violence Act here in America. Women. Oh, they went in and edited it and said now it applies to all genders. Well, if it applies to all genders, take women out of the title. Oh, see, men didn't think about that because you've been so intoxicated by the abuse narrative. You have to break out of the mold. Ask questions, ask important questions. Why does it specifically say women? Take women out. If it's not gender specific in America, it's against the law to write a law that identifies and supports a specific gender or race. It's a huge violation of federal law, and our Supreme Court's already ruled you can't do that. But they did. Oh, they fixed it by they went in and they put in the wording they put in there all genders because they knew it was about to get thrown off the books. But it's still in the title. Why? It's because men are not fighting. Men are not getting mad. It's happening gradually through time. It's going to happen. Now, here's my word of caution to our oppressors, and I'm speaking specifically towards the feminists and the female abusers. Look at your history, read your history. Your history specifically says when a race, creed, gender, or national origin becomes oppressed, what happens? They soon become the oppressor and they retaliate. So if you don't want this to happen, and it's happened all the time throughout world history, doesn't matter what continent you're on, it's in historical record. So if you don't want this to happen, if you don't want to lose your rights, you have no choice but to support men 1,000%. Protest with us, activate with us, donate both your money and your time. You have no choice because it's going to happen. And when it does, I don't want to take anything from what you women have fought for the last 65 years. I don't want to take anything away from you. But when it happens, it's going to happen in mass. And some of that I can't control. So don't blame me. Don't come to me and say, Bill, you said you didn't take anything away because that's not our purpose. Our purpose is the fair administration of law, regardless of gender. If that happens through factional organizations of men who want to retaliate, it's out of my control. It's out of my control. The other thing, too, I'd like to point out about veteran fathers is we're fathers. We're not black fathers. We're not Asian fathers. We're not Indian fathers. We don't identify by race, creed, religion, sex, or national origin. I absolutely forbid it. It's written in our bylaws. It's absolutely forbidden. So, for those of you out there who feel it's important for you to identify by your nationality, we have a fix for you. If you look at our logoing, we have a lot of red, white, and blue because right now we have an American organization. If you want to set up one in Mumbai, you can use the same colors as your national flag. Why? Because that now identifies you as an organization of veteran fathers working and operating inside India to help Indian fathers and children. So you do have a national presence. You can be proud of your nationality in your country. I encourage it. I love patriotism. I've traveled the globe at least 4 times. I've been in all kinds of countries in Africa and Europe and Asia, and I love them. I love seeing national pride. I love seeing national patriotism. You should be proud of your country. And at Veteran Fathers, we allow you to do that. If we set up one in a different state, Texas, they want to put the Texas flag back there. We're okay with that. We've designed our whole purpose to support the individual and national efforts on a global scale. There's not a single organization on the planet that is solidified enough, has thought through things so well as Veteran Fathers. Not one. I've talked to them. I know them. Not one. That's us in a nutshell. Hope it explains a lot of things. I hope it identifies what men need to do. And above all, I understand your passion. You have to understand your passion is doing this. You have to look at your productivity, look at it like a business. And what is all this passion bringing you? What's the goal? In order to have a successful business, you have to have something that's duplicatable with guidelines that produce specific results that are measurable. What is that? What's the basic definition of a successful business model? You're advocating for new laws. Not going to work. It's going to fail. I hate to break the news to you, but that's what the data shows us. You're going to fail. You're going to spin your wheels. You're going to waste all this time and energy doing nothing. Makes you feel good. That's it. What can you do that's measurable, definable, and produces results? If the courts say you owe this men's group X number of thousands or millions of dollars, guess what the legislator has to do? He has to find the damn money, or else He'll be held in contempt and drug in front of a judge and said, I issued a court order. I signed it. You have to do it, and you haven't done it. Why not? Well, the money isn't in the budget. I don't care because the law says you should have. Guess what? You need to find the damn money and give it to them, or I'm going to administer fines and penalties. Guess what that does for legislators? That now motivates them to find the damn money. And not only that, but it motivates them not to be sued again. So what are they going to do? Implement laws. What are those laws going to do? They're going to make sure they don't get sued again. And they're going to support the rights of men as victims and children. Interesting how that works, isn't it? You have to use the courts to force change in legislating. There's no other option. I've looked at India, I've looked at Japan, I've looked at Australia, I've looked at UK, I've looked at everything throughout the globe. Our researchers have too. It all comes back to courts. You have to win lawsuits. There's no other way around it. And you have to win big ones. How does that start off? You have to win the little ones first. Let me use an example of here in America, the Oxycontin and the tobacco lawsuits. Don't think those lawsuits were won because they pulled together the data and waged one big lawsuit. No, 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 no. That's not how those took place. They won little lawsuits, little lawsuits, little lawsuits. What does that do? That builds case law. So it's a building block principle. It builds case law. Once there was enough case law, these law firms were following these case laws through the legal system here in America. And they say, you know what? On these tobacco lawsuits, there's so many little wins. We can pull them all together collectively and we can sue the tobacco companies en masse for hundreds of millions. And they did, and they won. They did the same strategy with the Oxycontin lawsuits, and they won. It's the same strategy here at Veteran Fathers. I'm not smart enough to create this wheel. I'm not creating it. I'm following what the feminists did. I'm using the wheel they created. We just sat back one day. We just went, oh, the answer's right here in front of us. We don't have to recreate anything. We just do what they did. Because guess what? They created case law. That's right. You see, case law applies to both genders. You see? So they gave us the bullets that we can put in our gun to go wage guerrilla lawfare in the courts. And the courts are pinned, they painted themselves in a corner. They're going to sit here and go, oh my God, you're right. This case law does say for women, but there's no way I can apply the case law for just women because that's illegal. I have to apply it to both genders equally. And they're correct. So the women have given us the bullets. They've given us the case law. Thank you, women. Thank you, ladies. Because now we're going to use your hard work, your hard labor, and your hard efforts to get guaranteed rights for men. That's how this works. And unless you understand the legal system, unless you're a legal professional, or unless you spend the time studying this strategy, it's hard for you to understand it because you're so emotionally clouded, you can't see the strategy. So break through the clouds. It's what we call the forest for the trees here in the States. Is step back from the forest and look at all those glorious trees in front of you. You're so close to them, all you see is one tree. Back up, back away, and look at all those glorious trees and go, oh my God, look at all those case laws we can now use to support us and get men specifically guaranteed rights under existing legislation that's immediately enforceable. Write that down. Let me say it again. Men need specific legislation under existing laws that's immediately enforceable. You have to have the enforcement part of that. If you don't have the enforcement part of it, it's nothing. It's words on paper. It has to be enforceable. So it has to be a law. And the law comes with sentencing, fines, and penalties associated with that law. Once it becomes federal law, all the states here in America codify it within their state. Now you got violations of state and federal law. That's the way it works here in America. If the federal government says this is law, the states have to adopt it and word it to fit their state. That's the law. They have to do that. And it's done all the time. And as men, we have to understand the purity of that strategy. We have to adapt to it. We got to stop being this. We've got to come together and we've got to fight this. You have any questions?
Great elucidation on your part, sir. If I might be able to, obviously, I'm just playing devil's advocate for the sake of the argument. I hope you understand because I'm elated by what you presented, but there might be some skepticism within men's minds, I don't mind, I don't care, I don't give a hoot what women think or what women say. But obviously, there might be some preconceived notions within the minds of men. For example, if I might be able to ask you directly, sir, uh, uh, is your organization what they call as a not for profit, non charitable organization that is registered under the 501c3 or something, within the ambit of the purview of the United States Constitution and laws?
Yes, we're a 501c3.
Okay. uh, is it a limited liability company, LLC?
Yes.
Yes. Uh, uh, in India, actually, we create something called LLP, Limited Liability Partnership. I mean, the liability of the founding members would be constrained only to the amount of capital that they have invested in the enterprise. So that might be the difference. But obviously, I want to, uh, hear your views about some of the legacy problems as well within the judiciary and the judicious nature of the poachers that we call otherwise as lawyers and attorneys and counselors, that we have heard the old saying that a good lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge, and it goes on and on. But eventually, wouldn't you think that the people who are from the legal fraternity would put one of their own to pastures? If they would hound out one, there would be a cascading effect, and they very well know that, and they would never be able to sacrifice uh, one of their own. And because that initial start is very important, as you rightly pointed out. So, for that, what do we have to prepare as uh, lawyers, for example, who are working with the men's rights groups and so on and so forth, and on the other part, vigilant and conscious stricken citizens who would be able to, and most importantly, fathers and men in general, men and boys, who would be able to, apart from the monetary part which you elucidated earlier, what is the part that we need to keep in mind, and we need to be vigilant of the courts and how the judiciary functions? Because in India, as we have seen the precedent of 50 million plus pending court cases with the Indian judiciary, they are very much keen to have a hearing about marital rape, by the way, in India, so that the family is totally destroyed and in shambles, and so that they would be able to fully flaunt whatever proclivities and propensities women have. And as usual, the current Chief Justice of India is also a Harvard University alumni. not a not a very
I'm sorry.
sanctimonious place to actually mention, but it is the case. So, for to challenge some of the norms which comes with the judiciary, which are the part and parcel of the uh, judiciary and the courtrooms in general, from a family court, which is called otherwise as a court of equity, to the Supreme Court. What could be some of the tectonic changes that we could do on an individual basis, whether we are acquainted with the legal prowess or not?
Wow, a lot of good questions. Okay, number one, I understand, and we've heard that same complaint from law firms here in the States that, well, we don't want to sue a judge because we may have other cases going in front of them, and other judges will retaliate against us with our other cases. That's fear. They can't. Number one. Number two, once you start putting judges in prison because they violate state and federal law, and constitutional law or civil rights, the rest of the judge will be put on notice. If I retaliate against this law firm or attorney, I could be facing criminal prosecution. Okay, so that's a misnomer. It's just fear. Number two is, sure, I understand that, a good attorney knows the law, a great attorney knows the judge. That's part of legal strategy. So if you deploy a proper legal strategy in these suits, you also have to deploy the media presence to accompany and support the suit. So, for instance, when we levy our lawsuits, we're in close coordination and close strategy meetings with the law firm and attorneys that are representing us, in which we will go into social media feeds, we will have press releases, we will put so much public attention on that lawsuit that the judge will have no problem properly administering the law. Here's why. Because as soon as he does it, the public outcry from the improper administration of law, the violation of civil and constitutional rights will be so demonstrative, we will probably be looking at filing suit against that judge. That's where you need to be. It isn't just simply filing the suit. You also have to have the support in the media and the social media and in that public presence to keep that in front of people's faces. And you'll see it. I mean, as soon as we levy our first lawsuit, we're going to publish that. And I'm going to pay close attention who picks that up and who pushes that throughout social media. And the ones that don't support us, well, I'll have my answer. That's where I was talking about this. That's where men have got to come together. I don't care what your issue is, what you have emotional connections with and proceeding with. Once these lawsuits start, we got to unite. We got to come together. It has to go global. It has to acknowledge the fact that we're going to levy a $40 million lawsuit against the state of Georgia for the failure to put domestic violence shelters up. As soon as that lawsuit gets filed in state court here in Georgia, I'll publish that in the documentation and I'll pay attention to my social media feeds and see who pushes that globally, who forces that in front of. I don't care if you're in Kazakhstan. If you're one of my followers and you pick up on that, you go, you know what? I'm going to push this to the press and media here. Why? Why is that so important? Whether they pick up and run with it doesn't matter. The fact is, they're aware something big has just occurred and there's going to be more. So let's talk about this legal war chest. Attorneys work off money. Money, money, money. You got to have money. Okay, if they work off money, great. That's their motivator. We've had financial analysts from some of the top firms come in and do a prospectus on us. And what they've said is, in short terms, family court is practically I forgot what it is, 70 million, 70 billion. I think it's $70 billion a year business for attorneys. We're possibly going to turn that into our model of a $1 trillion a year legal industry. Let me say that again. A $1 trillion a year legal industry. And that's just in North America, US and Canada. Think about that globally. Do the multipliers on that one. So we opened a whole new legal venue for attorneys to get wealthy, but money also comes back into the legal war chest. Here's why the ACLU never gets successfully sued. If you wedge a lawsuit against the ACLU, remember our model's built on the American Civil Liberties Union. Guess what happens? With enough veteran fathers organizations throughout the globe, we all get on a call. We all say, hey, we're getting sued. Here's why. Everybody pitches in. Everybody volunteers to defend against that suit, and we'll win. That's why the ACLU always wins. They pool their resources. That's why it's so important. Never forget this image. If you're watching this, never forget this image of 5 fingers on a hand, each doing separate things, but they have to come together and unite as a fist and fight. You have got to always keep that in your mind, because until men learn to cooperate, work together, and focus on a common mission and direction that has quantifiable, measurable results that everybody can see, we're going to continue to fail. Lobbyist doesn't work. It's never worked because it's an incestuous pool of money. We've had firms contact us and say, hey, we'd like to discuss with you about setting up a super PAC. A super PAC does what in the States? Elects presidents. Maybe that's on the roadmap. I don't know. Maybe that's a spin out of our nonprofit. I don't know. Can we do that? Sure. We can do all of that with the right support. Once we start winning these cases, it's going to be what's called the waterfall effect. So it's going to cascade and everybody's going to pick up on them. And then when other law firms start picking up on them and running individually with them, we need to start asking the question then, why aren't you in sponsorship with veteran fathers? How do we know that's really out there for men? Because Veteran Fathers is the definitive organization, the watermark that says, yes, this is a good lawsuit for men and children. That's how we change everything that's going on. That's how men can step up and fight for kids. That's how women can step up and fight for kids. That's how you make sure everything's done properly, everything's done coordinated effort, everything's done in a very beautiful fashion to protect and help children.
Uh, if I might be able to ask a follow-up question to that, sir, uh, there is always a catalyst, and there is always a domino effect after that subsequently. I totally understand that, and I totally attest to that as well. But till we reach that fulcrum point, is there any other method or any other process or technique that we could apply as men and boys in general? In general, I'm not singling out women as well, but in general, women who care about their own fathers, their own husbands, their own sons, their own brothers as well, who are concerned about them. If we are still lagging behind in that, I mean, don't take it as otherwise question or something. It is just my own curiosity which I am asking. uh, till we reach that sort of fulcrum point, till we reach that point of moment of truth, is there something that we could apply other than activism, which we are doing proficiently,
Yes.
of course? Yes.
Yes.
What?
One of the strategies that we see as an effective strategy is to cause the total collapse of the marriage industry. Now, let me explain this. Men are relationship focused. I really believe that. Does that mean, like here in the States, you should get married and sign a marriage contract with the state? No. Get married in the church. Just get married. Just do everything you normally do as a married couple. You don't need to sign a state document. You don't need to have a big party. You don't need to have all this stuff. Have a party, great, but you don't need to do the whole marriage venue, all that type of stuff. No. You see, if it becomes a financial risk for men not to get guaranteed rights and privileges under existing legislation that's immediately enforceable, and the marriage industry, a multi-million dollar industry here in the States, collapses. Wedding gowns don't get sold, caterers go out of business, marriage venues don't have the money to support themselves because no one's coming to them to get married in their venue. They all collapse. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to start asking the question, well, what's happening? Why aren't men having these big parties anymore? That's a financial risk they have to bear, and they'll figure it out. They'll go, wait a minute, there's a movement going on. We missed it, and I'm going out of business unless I support this movement. I've had very prominent people in the marriage industry have meetings with me prior to this launch, asking me not to launch this nonprofit. We literally had a meeting with me over lunch. And when I asked them why, they said, "We'll go out of business if this takes place, Bill. You can't do this. You'll drive us out of business." A couple of them sold out because they started paying attention to the trend. That's what we have to do. We have to cause an economic impact. So where else do we cause an economic impact? Don't get married. So now the marriage venues get wiped out. They go out of business. Okay. No big parties, no great celebrations. Have it just a real quick and easy party get together with friends and family. That's it. Nothing big, glorious. Don't sign any state documents. Don't do that. Well, now the state can't tax you. The state can't do these things. State doesn't have authority. State doesn't have this power. Well, what's going on? Things are changing. What other economic venues can we dramatically impact where now they'll start to pay attention? That has to be a strategy. So you're asking what other strategies? Yeah. One is educating, which we're doing a great job of. Okay, since Elon Musk bought X and lifted that whole free speech avenue, look at all the connections that are being made after that was lifted, after all that was corrected. He's a visionary. If you listen to his talks, he wants the truth. That's his passion. He said, I want to know the truth. That's why he loved physics and mathematics. He's like, that's the truth to him. That's his definable truth. Great. If he wants the truth, that's the truth. Is if men don't get specifically guaranteed rights under existing legislation that's immediately enforceable, we're going to cause bankruptcies because we have to realize we have the monetary power. We do. And we need to be smart with that. So look around your society and figure out if men don't get married, if men don't do this, the diamond industry will collapse. Why? We stop buying diamonds, engagement rings, wedding bands. What other impacts can men have? Because the diamond industry here in America, I know, as far as engagement and wedding rings, is massive. For instance, I made the mistake of buying my last wife a $70,000 diamond engagement ring. Huge mistake on my behalf. Took me several years to pay that off, but I paid it off, and I was proud of it until I saw indications of her infidelity. Now think about this. I'm here now putting my own case on the back burner, fighting for other men, knowing I potentially could be looking at a felony lawsuit against my ex-wife. So if you're looking for men to sacrifice for the greater good, if that's the terminology you want to use, you're looking at him right here sitting in front of you. That's what men have to do. Men have to realize it's not about you. Your problem will get fixed if we fix the greater problem. It'll happen. You just have to be patient. But if you continue to focus on you as an individual, nothing will change. Nothing. Men will always be back here. Because here's what we found out. We helped a father. He got his kids. Whenever he got his kids, he stopped communicating with us. He stopped talking with us. He just ghosted, just totally disappeared.
I
So we
mean,
backed off on that level of support.
that is exactly the very same carbon copy problem that we have in India, because we as MRAs have saved one chap. Okay, so if I could maybe, no, it has been, many moons ago, so I can speak about it. uh, a woman from my hometown married a boy from my hometown. He was working in Hewlett Packard, HP company, which builds manufactures laptops and computers in US, through the H1B visa, as usual. The girl got into contact with a Pakistani doctor over there in the states. Uh, got addicted to cocaine and drugs after marriage. This is after marriage story. And the boy came from very humble beginnings. The girl was like richy rich family. uh, Girl filed a domestic violence case not only in the states, in India as well. Not only that, a judge in family court in my hometown said to him, by issuing a summon and a show cause notice as to why he has not appeared for the hearings, so on and so forth. He said he has to be present over here, otherwise, I have the authority to cancel his H1B visa. And once you get delisted by a judge through the judicial sector in India, what happens is you get blacklisted from from all other Fortune 500 companies. They consider you as a pariah, a persona non grata. So he would be put out to pastures, and his IT degree as a computer engineer or reverse engineer or whatever is going to be of no use unless he starts teaching at a university or something, or an engineering college. Now, the girl was also earning around perhaps uh, $2,500 a month. The boy was earning around perhaps $10,000 a month, he had to give 60% of his salary, meaning $6,000 per month to girl as maintenance, subsistence allowance, as they call it in Indian English common law version, as support. Not only that, he had to fund the fees of her advocate, her solicitor. Alongside, she wrongfully declared him because he used to handle some of the critical systems of the government infrastructure with the likes of the federal, the feds and some of the stuff which I can't mention, as he told us. I mean, government related stuff which is very critical regarding the national security from your view. Uh, she declared him as a terrorist or a spook or something. He landed on Mumbai airport. He was greeted by Indian Air Force Garud commandos. They interrogated him in their own style. You know, the armies of the world have their own interrogation style. Even deaf people start singing lullabies, and he did the
Sorry.
same. Yes. No, actually, third degree torture is permissible when it comes to national security and so on and so forth. So I have been a strategic affairs observer myself. My friends covered the war in Syria and so on and so forth. So I know a lot of stuff from what they pejoratively call as the paper pusher or the pencil pusher side. So policy research intern and all that stuff regarding nuclear exchange ratio, arms control association, the lot. So that is my one of my niches which I did earlier. Then I got into banking industry. So what he suffered, nobody took cognizance other than us as MRAs, who helped him through thick and thin, even when his lawyer was giving up on him every time. We stood up for him. We employed a lawyer from free of charge, by the way. We
Mhm.
didn't charge him a single penny. And what happened after his case was over? The girl was declared with the photographs and the video. She was so brazen, she said in front of the judge, "It wasn't me." Not only that, when she suffered a heavy blow and when she was declared that she is an adulteress, and that is why his case was ameliorated in a way that he found it, to have a sigh of relief. After that, we have had never a thank you from his side. This is what we suffer as well. So, why is there this sort of apathy amongst men and boys, which is the first stumbling block that we need to, you know, clear before we go for any other step? Because this apathy towards each other is what is killing us, and we remain separated and divided. We remain in we are kept in little boxes according to the whims and fancies of the government, and we never get united. We are either farmers, either veterans, either this that, or either former government servants or government employees, as the case might be. We never identify ourselves as men and boys, and what is our nature, what are our biological systems which are true to mankind in general, just like breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. So why is there, I know I have digressed a bit, forgive me for saying so, but I wanted to elucidate a little bit upon this, because this apathy factor, as well as the complete oblivious nature of men, towards their own life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, as well as the physical and mental well being, is something which we ourselves lack. So, I mean, our sworn enemies are just going to laugh at us, as you rightfully mentioned earlier, because we never are able to speak amongst each other publicly on our own issues. For example, testicular cancer, it is most prevalent across the world amongst men, but we never see a hair band or a NFL band or a football or cricket band about testicular cancer. What we see is breast cancer. Why?
Well,
Because
men
it.
get breast cancer too.
Yes, yes, but we never see an advocacy vehemently, passionately on that side, even if the media does so, a stint or a prime time 30-minute TV show on that. It is because of the ratings, first of all, the TRP ratings. The second of all, they do it because half-heartedly. Honestly, they do it half-heartedly. There is no research behind it. They don't passionately discuss. So, is it our own gynocentric nature that is liable for the culmination of the doomy and gloomy situation that we are in, as alongside the apathy factor that is amongst ourselves, and the lack of conscience on our own part, that we don't know as to what are our own rights in that regard?
Well, a lot of stuff to unravel there. So men are men are damaged. Um, I'm a firm believer in that. And that once they complete the fight, they're exhausted and they just want to be left alone. They've won and they have no more energy left. That's a sign of mental and emotional damage. Okay, it's called isolation. The other thing that we need to take into account is if you look at these men that are joining in support, look at their background. And their background typically is, from what I've observed, they're veterans or they're from a background where they played team sports. I know cricket's big in India. Why? Is because they understand the brotherhood, the fraternity of men in team sports. Each man plays his position to the overriding goal and success of the team, and then the entire team celebrates. Track is not a team sport. Swimming is not a team sport. When you take men and you look at leaders, real leaders of men, they understand the team concept. They understand men as a team, as a unified entity. They understand that. And that's what brings men together. But when men don't have that concept, either through being brought up as children or through their socialization in team sports or military or other team oriented functions, they'll never understand it. And they'll never cooperate as a team. Okay. A lot of men believe that they can lead. They do. A lot of men believe they can lead. There's a wonderful set of works here in America, and I highly recommend it to anybody listening. It's called From Good to Great, and look up the author. The title of the first book in his series is Good to Great. Read all of them. I read them and study them continuously. We got approached by an organization that said, "Well, Bill, you're doing a great job, but we need someone who's famous as a spokesperson." But if you look at the research in the whole Good to Great series, to have a charismatic leader is the predominant sign of failure. Really. A charismatic leader is the predominant sign of failure. But if you look at leaders who have succeeded, they all have been guttural men. Chesty Puller, General Patton, U.S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, Lincoln. They weren't good looking men, but they were fighters. They had the scars. They were ugly, but they knew they had tenacity. They had that grit. That's a leader. Not someone that looks good on the cover of a magazine. He's there because he looks good. He's done nothing. He has no leadership skills. He just looks good. He speaks well. I say things that make people mad. Good, good. I say things that a lot of people don't agree with. Good, good. Think for yourself. I say things that people will look at me and go, that's crazy as hell. I would never say that if I was running a nonprofit. Well, guess what? You're not running a damn nonprofit. So stay in your swim lane. A lot of people come out and say, Bill, you don't know what you're doing. Really? Look at what they're doing. They're doing nothing but being a bitch. So you know what you do? Put them in the bitch corner. You're a bitch. Stay over there. Stay away from me. Don't follow them. Don't associate with them because they are out there for your failure. Germans have a word for that. It's called Schadenfreude. What does that mean? That means somebody who rejoices off another person's failure. Think about that. When you're being critical of someone in the MRA, FRA industry, when you're being critical of someone running something that will work, look at yourself. What are you doing? Nothing but bitching. That makes you a bitch. Go to the bitch corner. That means everybody following these bitches, stop following them. Stop recognizing them as a human being. Isolate them. Put them out on a leper colony and never touch or associate with them ever again. Why? Because they are only out there for your failure. Period. Period. I might not agree with what some of these activists are doing, but I don't speak against them. If we have a private conversation, that's a private conversation I'm having with them. I don't bring that public. Why? Because I refuse to go against anything that's MRA, FRA. And if you feel I have, I apologize. That wasn't my intent. But men need to realize, and men need to identify other men who are against men and fathers. When you find that, you're actually looking at a communist. They now go on the leper colony. But Lynn, look to who's following them. Those people following them, isolate yourself from them. What happens when men are faced with peer pressure? People gravitate towards perceived centers of power. Weak people gravitate towards perceived centers of power. Write that down. Weak people, and I mean morally and emotionally weak people, gravitate toward perceived centers of power. If men don't start acting like we are the center of power, we'll never achieve that goal. And then when we put peer pressure on them, they'll change their behavior. They'll want back in the fold. They'll want back in the fraternity. But we're not changing our behavior. We're not presenting ourselves as a center of power. I am. You damn right I am. Because I refuse racism. I refuse sexism. I refuse to speak out against men or fathers organizations. I absolutely refuse to. I might not agree with you. Don't misunderstand disagreement with not supporting you. There's a difference. But until men say, you know what, you spoke bad about Bill, you spoke bad about Shamir, you spoke bad about David, I'm not having anything to do with you and any of your followers. What happens? They now become isolated, alone. They don't want that. They now realize their behavior was toxic and not accepted, unacceptable, black and white. Don't make it a gray playing field. Now, you and I had a conversation about women infiltrating or working their way in. Be very careful. Women can be a powerful ally or an extremely toxic relationship. We all know that. Okay. But that's why, like, we have women helping us out in Veteran Fathers. Why? We need help. You think I'm going to turn away help? Hell no, I'm busy as fuck. But no men are stepping up. So when a woman steps up, we question her, we filter her. The board has to approve her. Why? Because they're going to be integrated into our organization and they're going to see a lot of confidential communications. They sign very strict NDAs. NDA, non-disclosure, confidentiality agreements. That's right. It's a business. It's contractual. Eventually, as we get strong enough, we'll hire our own attorneys on our own paralegal. We'll set up our own legal division, just like the ACLU does. And we don't have to go out and source law firms. We can go to our own legal staff and say, the board elected this case is the case we're going to proceed with. Let's start building a strategy around this case. Let's start suing. Boom. Well, without a legal war chest, I can't do that. I have to source external law firms. That's why this legal war chest is so vitally important. As far as I'm concerned, every father on the planet should be looking at this and going, you know what? He's right. And here's why. It needs to start here in the United States. And you're my brothers in India, pay very close attention to this. You've heard this before, and I'm going to say it. I'm say it right here. So pay very close attention. When America sneezes, The rest of the world catches the flu. The laws you're running into come from America. The unlawful administration of the laws come from America. Everything starts here. This is the epicenter of our mistreatment. Right here, I'm sitting in it. So how do you fix laws in your country? Here's how it takes place. We start suing here in the States. We start putting judges, attorneys, officers in court and prison. We start getting laws in place. Guess what India is going to do? They're going to look at America and they're going to go, oh, shit. It's only going to be a little while for that shit makes landfall here. But they've enacted these new laws over here in America. We need to adapt those laws. Look at your history. Look at your legal history. It all comes from England or America. All of it. And all your family court shit you guys are running through there, America and England. Guess where our next step's going to be? Canada. Now England's going to be sitting there going, damn, they're coming. That's how it takes place, one step at a time, one continent at a time. Then we go to England, start putting their judges, attorney, officers in the court and prison. Guess where we're going next? India. Guess why? Because India is going to start, what in the South we call stepping and fetching. Guess what stepping and fetching means? Better get your ass working or someone's going to put a boot in your rump. That's what that means. It's a Southern term, stepping and fetching. Write that down, stepping and fetching. Bill said it. And when we go to India and we set up an office in India, guess what the Indian government's going to do? They're going to show up, throw flowers at our feet, have a big parade, and they're going to want to negotiate. We're not there to negotiate, people. We're there to wage lawfare. Because you can't correct history unless you bring it to the forefront of the legal environment and hold those individuals accountable. That's the way this has to take place, one step at a time. So look at your legal history. Where does Indian legal history, concept of government come from? America and England, primarily out of England. Where does England get
Primarily
their?
out of England. Yes.
Yeah, primarily out of England. Watch the English courts. Something changed in American courts, they changed it in English courts. Tender years doctrine, English courts adapted it. Where'd it come from? America. The Marxists here. Damn it. Canada, when they changed their family law, where's it come from? America. I'm sitting in the epicenter of the battlefield. I'm right here where all the artillery is landing. Start making change here. Watch the rest of the globe. Another Southern term, write this one down. Shit a brick. Because they know it's coming. There's nothing they can do to avoid it. It will come eventually. So guess what they'll start doing? We move into Canada. We start correcting the Canadian courts. Guess what they'll start doing? Oh, we need to change some legislation, how we rule about things. Go. I encourage them. Go ahead. Yeah, you need to fix it. But when we get there, the historical damage will now be brought into civil litigation because they've done it. They need to be held accountable. That's how this works. That's why I'm saying if you don't understand the overriding legal strategy in this, it's going to be hard for you to wrap your fingers around why this is so good and why it's so beautiful and it'll work for children. Because you don't understand the legal strategy. But you have to keep pulling away layers of the onion and go, where does the Indian court make these changes? What happened prior to this change in Indian courts? Oh, this happened in England. Where did England get that? Start pulling apart. Oh, this happened in America. Where did America get it? Nothing. They did it. Went from America to England, from England to India. Leapfrogging, continent to continent. Once it goes to England, once it goes to India, where else to go? Africa, the Middle East, Japan. You don't attack the epicenter, the rest are going to continue to suffer. You have to attack the epicenter to stop the logistics chain to all the rest of the armed forces. It's standard military doctrine. Look at your own military. Look at your battles against Pakistanis and Peshmerga. You've been against those wars all the time, ongoing. Why? You haven't destroyed the epicenter. You destroy the epicenter, that goes away. Goes away. You have to destroy the epicenter, being the family courts here in America. You have to hold them accountable. You brought up the fact it's a court of equity. What that has significant meaning, and here's why. In America, that means the state now owns family court, not the federal government. Years ago, the federal government washed their hands of that and said, we're going to pass this down to the state. Now it's this court of equity. What does that mean? The individual states and 4 U.S. territories are individually, financially, and criminally accountable for the conduct and misconduct of judges, attorneys, and officers of court and family court. They can be held civilly and criminally accountable for the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars per state. We sue the state of Georgia. We win the lawsuit for Daddy's House. Guess where that goes? All 49 states and 4 U.S. territories are now financially liable. Why? It's case law. What's the next step? Once we sue 7 or so states, the attorneys already told us this. Once we sue 7 or so states, we're going to sue the federal government for hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Why? Because they fund the states with federal funding. They knew this. They saw it. They refused to take action. Once we do that, Daddy's House is going to be all throughout the globe because we got the money to put them there. That's how this works. It starts with one simple suit. It goes and grows and grows and grows and grows. If you don't shut down the epicenter, your problem's going to continue and it's going to get worse. You have to shut down the epicenter. You have to shut down the supply chain. Once you turn off the supply chain, the rest will falter and die on the vine. When they falter and die on the vine, all you got to do is walk in and pick the fruit from the tree. It's simple legal strategy. It's simple military doctrine. Do your own research. Evaluate it yourself and go, well, this crazy dude on that show was saying this. I don't believe it. Why? Did you look at it? Did you research it? No, I just don't want to believe it. Well, that's your problem, not my problem. Do the research yourself. Look at it and say, well, if he's right, what will happen? He's right. We shut down the epicenter of all these violations of laws, civil rights. If we march judges to the Hague, march them to the Hague for what, Bill? What can we march judges to the tribunal at the Hague under the UN courts? What could that be for? Crimes against humanity. It fits within the venue. We've read the laws from the UN. And when we start marching in front of the Hague, what does that mean? Every judge on the planet, every attorney on the planet, every law enforcement officer on the planet is what we call the sphincter. It causes you not to shit your pants. They'll draw up tighter than a banjo string because now they're scared to death because we have that power. That's what we need, that power. Men have to come together on this. Do your own research and go, Bill, I think you're wrong. I have no problem having this conversation with you. Why? I've got 5 years of research. You might have a couple of hours of research. So when you come against me with that argument saying, Bill, you're wrong, get ready. I'm going to hand you your rump. Then I'm going to go, now do you understand? That's how this works with me. You're going to come to me, have that conversation, have a conversation. Don't have an argument with me. I'm a good guy. I'm on the side of men and children. Okay, I'm a good guy. Don't have an argument with me. Have a discussion. Show me in the discussion where I'm wrong, because you can't. Why? I got 5 years of research says I'm right. So you do 5 years of research, compile your data after 5 years, and then we'll come together. We'll look at the raw data. So that means you got 5 years to prove me wrong. Start. I'll see you in 2024. I'll see you in 2030. That's how strong I am about this. That's how I know deep to the marrow of my bone this will work. So stop looking at the trees. Step away and look at the forest. Look at the richness and vastness of this strategy. And when you can see the forest, now you understand the battle map. You understand the ground of which we have to wage the war. You have to cut the head of the serpent off from the body. America's the head of the serpent.
I mean, there is actually a lady whose channel is this, and she is whom I regard as my elder sister. Good Mother is her name, and her channel is all about mothering and being a good mother. And she has uh, braved FBI and Texas A&M University police at her doorstep because the people wanted to get to me, but I was outside the jurisdiction of extradition from the United States FBI. So they reached up to the owner of the channel, that is Good Mother. So lovely Good Mother, seeing you in the chat. And she is actually asking a subsequent question to that why don't Mr. Corbett, you start with Texas first of all, because for a number of reasons, Texas is the breadbasket of America. Texas has a lot of I mean, apart from being a red state, it has a lot of conservative values, and people, I mean, from the outside, it comes across as they might be able to support that more than people in Georgia, or I mean, in any other state like Colorado, or any of the other state from the Rust Belt. Why not Texas first, and why Atlanta first?
Um, we just decided to start in Georgia. It wasn't we didn't look at starting per state. We looked at where it was the easiest, most convenient. We looked at the legal teams that were here in Georgia that I know that we could partner with, good legal teams that understood our mission, our goal, and our direction. And we have a conservative state. Okay. Texas is a conservative state. We've had requests to open via 501 office there. There's no reason why there can't be one there. So my question back to her is, why haven't you set up an office there? If you want Texas to be part of this, what's preventing you from setting up an office there? Nothing. Nothing. There's no reason why you can't. The reason why we can't have an office in every capital city in the United States and 4 U.S. territories. There's just people don't want to do it. So my question goes back. What's preventing you from setting up a satellite office, a subsidiary in the capital of Texas, Houston, Texas? Nothing. You just don't want to do it. That's the difference. That's why we wanted to do it in Georgia. Nobody else wants to do it in the other states. They will eventually.
Okay, okay, okay. So, uh, I mean, obviously, there is going to be a domino effect after the successful victory, which
Hmm.
I wish luck for the Veteran Fathers Foundation. But I have seen some of the Japanese style of, I mean, apart from the legal judicial guerrilla war lawfare that you were enunciating earlier, sir. There is a thing called activism, and in activism, men's rights activism, what I have seen so far, who have been the tip of the spear very recently, have been the South Korean men
Hmm.
who are chanting slogans, shaking their fist in the air, saying, "Out with the man haters, down with the man haters down, down." And they have had the audacity
Hmm.
to actually run as an anti feminist presidential candidate. And he actually won the elections, if I
Yeah, I
wasn't mistaken.
published. Yeah, I published. No, you're not mistaken. I published an article on my Medium account. It's called. I'm looking at it now. It's called "South Korea Hates Feminist Abusers," and this is where men have gotten to the point where we've had enough. Okay, because they come together on this. They come together on this. Now,
Yes,
don't get me wrong. There's tremendous amount of resistance against this, but they won. Why did they win? They got out and voted. They got out and voted. Men don't want to
yes,
vote. I don't understand that. Why? It's easy. Go vote. So what if you lose? Guess what the politician's going to pay attention to? Oh, wait, there's a tremendous spike in male voters. They're going to start paying attention. That's how we do this. You got to go vote. You got to go vote. And there's a lot of naysayers. Well, it's all rigged. I don't care. Go vote. How do you prove to rigged election? You need data. What's data? The core data element is the vote. I mean, I've worked, and it was a little information about me. I've worked with those organizations that looked into the voter fraud here in the United States. I know all the details of those forensic investigations. Okay. Their biggest complaint, we need more data. These are from the deep data analytics that is going on. We need more data. What's the missing data element? Women vote 13% more than men in the United States. The only missing element is men. Men go vote. The data analytics, these experts, these mathematicians need your data element to be able to quantify the results for voter fraud. And I'm sitting back, I'm listening to grown ass men going, "Oh no, vote, it's all rigged." And I'm like, Jesus Almighty God! I'm talking to an educated man, and he just said that just literally came out of his mouth. I can't believe what men are just saying. What they're doing is they're parroting an abusive narrative. Like, why would you parrot your own abuse? Stop it. Stop being a knucklehead. Start doing smart things. Start going, it doesn't hurt to go vote. You get to take a little break from work. Let me go down, stand in line. They aren't long. And just go down there and say, I'm going to vote. And show up and vote. Yeah. Then let the experts get a hold of those raw data elements, put it all together and go, whoa, we got a problem here. Yeah. And you brought up the story right there out of South Korea. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've got it on my Medium account, and analysis of it on my Medium account too. That's what's so important is everybody out there thinks this won't work. It's working. The reason why it's not working for you is you're not doing the right thing. Men in Korea went out and voted. Guess what happened? They won. Other countries, I don't want to vote. It's all rigged. Oh my dear Lord, you have just been, you just espoused the psyop, the psychological operation working against men. I'm firmly convinced of that. Psychological operation working against men. Oh, don't go vote because your vote won't count anyway. It's rigged. Okay, I'm gonna go vote. That just come out of the mouth of an educated man. What the hell? No. When the government tells you or your neighbors tell you don't do something, guess what? Do it. My dad told me years ago when I was a young man, I said, Daddy, I want to become successful. I want to become rich and famous. He's like, well, everybody does, son. Like, what do I do? He says, look at what everybody else is doing. Do the opposite. Rich people look at what everybody else is doing. They do the opposite. And I never forgot that. I started paying attention to it. What are men doing? Men are advocating. Is it working? No. Do the opposite. Well, the opposite is not advocating. No. Opposite is suing. Men aren't suing. So what do? Sue. Simple logic. Look at what everybody else is doing. Do the opposite. What does the government want you to do? Don't do that. What's the media telling you to do? Don't do that either. Why? Because the government's feeding the information to the media to put in your brain and brainwash you. Don't do it. Pay attention to the media. What does the media say? Media says this. What do? Don't believe it? Don't do it. It's simple. You want to know where the lie is? Look in the media. That's the lie. They're liars. All right. Now that I know they're liars, what is the lie? That is the lie. Okay, I'm not going to believe it. Go on X. Why? Because individuals on there are putting in their own data and their own research. Individuals are smoking the media. Media is afraid to post on X. Why? Because community notes go in there and fix their lie. I love reading community notes. I'm like, ooh, man, ooh, wow, ooh, that was harsh. So media lies. Why do they lie? The government told them to lie. Okay, now we know our government's lying to us. What are they lying to us about? Now it's all coming out. So pay attention. I'm not saying don't listen to what's in the media. I'm saying paying attention to it and then taking it from the standpoint of they're lying to me. But why are they lying? It's because they're in a psyop to get you to do something they want you to do. So what do? Do the opposite. Don't do it. What is a psyop? They want men to advocate. Why? Get your voice heard. Get your story told. Does it make you feel good? Yeah, give yourself a hug. Do you feel better? Yeah, do I feel better? I got my story heard. What did it do? Nothing. Didn't do a damn thing. You feel better? Yeah. Okay, great. Did you get your hug? Got my hug. Okay, are you done? Yeah. You ready to go to war? Ready to go to war? Come over here and talk to me. I only work with warriors. I only work with men that are ready to go to war. You're not ready to go to war? Don't call me. Arr! Sorry, I digress. I had a little bit of fun anyway.
When it comes to mistreatment of men on an industrial scale, uh,
Global pandemic.
every death that could be linked to, yes, but I mean, like a massacre, like uh, the Great Leap Forward in China, which happened, and 40 million people were, you know, made as cannon fodder, or in the Holodomor massacres, or in the Auschwitz level concentration camps, or I mean, the horrors of not only war per se, but horrors and crimes against humanity, as you enunciated earlier, sir. Uh, in that very section, uh, the story from the global south always lags behind, because many of the people in the Western world, as far as regarding MRAs are concerned, they are not well aware of the fact that there was an national emergency that was being superimposed by the government, and the Supreme Court was also disbanded for 2 years, since 1975 to 1977. And there was a female prime minister who goes by the name Indira Gandhi. And what she did was actually uh, this: the legacy of India's quest to sterilize millions of men. And they did that. Uh, it was the number was found to be around 6.2 million, if I actually say that. So this could be a very well read and well rehearsed, from Pulitzer, from Quads, from BBC, magazine or stories which you could, uh, peruse over. This could very well be used as an MRA, point of discussion, that the tyranny of the government is always, uh, superimposed upon male sterilization
Okay,
as the
let me
things.
let me step in here real quick.
But what I'm trying to get to is the point that it is never enunciated, perhaps because of the insularity. And I totally understand that. I don't hold any Western individual accountable, but there is a lack of awareness, because this could be used as a tool. Yes, as a tool, I said it openly, as a shield for the MRA, which which could then be helpful for them to protect men in general against the tyranny of the state in general, because it is all about the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I never see any man from the western part of the world, from the Western Hemisphere, actually using it to their advantage. I want them to use this to their advantage, because, as if you said, America sneezes and the rest of the world catches a cold. Uh, it is very much so that then the rest of the world would start telling this story as well. And if that happens, the story gets popular, not only about the fact that the emergency was there, but 6.2 million Indian men were forcefully sterilized by and given vasectomies by the state under the drive of population control. So, all those people who talk about my body, my choice, and all that in the Western world, they would be able to very much, you know, be amazed by the fact as to what tyrannies of governments actually do. It is the reverse of the handmaid's tale or whatever. So, what I want to push through you this narrative, for building a narrative in the favor of men and boys in general. This could also be used uh, for men in general, Western men as well, so that they would be able to build their own narrative against government tyranny. That's all I'm saying.
So what you're pointing out is the improper administration of law. We're back to the courts. And if the law was administered correctly, government would administer themselves correctly because they would live in fear of the administration of law. Where does this all come down to? People. Government is an innate object. Who are the people in government doing that? It's an individual or group of individuals. If law was properly administered, those individuals would be in prison right now. Okay. But laws are not being properly administered. Everybody wants to blame the government. It's an inanimate object. Pull apart the pieces of the puzzle. Who were the people in government that did that? There's your problem. Are they elected? Yeah. Who now is the problem? The people that elected them. Yeah. The voters accountable. There's a saying here in the States. I want you to hear some more notes you can take. Write this down. Do not blame the prince of fools. when an entire confederacy of fools made him their prince. Strong, isn't it? Strong, isn't it? That's where people make the mistake. That's where men make the mistake. Oh, they're going to blame government. No. Is he an elected position? No, he's a bureaucrat. He was appointed. Okay, who is the elected official that appointed the bureaucrat? This guy. That elected official has to go. Boom. If the courts were administered correctly and laws were administered fairly, guess what would happen? Those individuals who decided to do that sterilization would be sitting in an Indian prison dungeon. That's what would happen. We're back to the courts again. Like I said, you're going to have these discussions with me. Get your ammo together because it all comes back to the proper administration of law. The courts are not acting in best interest of the people according to the original construct of legislation and law. The problem is the courts. Simple.
I totally realized that part which was missing within my own perusal over it. But what happens if the executive branch actually disbands the court and thereby revokes all of the court orders in general? I mean, the instruments of the state would be answerable to the executive first of all, not the judiciary, in the sense that they have to manage on day to day basis the polity as well as the civilization in general. I mean, they are doing a bad job about it, no nonsense about it, but in general what they do is they have to be in the managerial position, not the court, which is actually in the seat of an adjudicator. So adjudicator could say whatever they want, but they have to enforce it via the executive. So there might be a
So
thing
we,
that
we had
if we
we had something
are
we had something similar here in the
if,
states.
if
Let me interject here.
can I just yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm merely saying that if we are skeptical of the overreach of the draconian laws and the tyranny of the government, and we are skeptical of regarding vaccines or regarding, eh, I mean, n number of issues. So, could it happen that we should also be skeptical of the overreach of the executive and the sword arm of the state, that is the instruments of the state and the enforcement agencies in general? Because then we would be able to actually realize that the judiciary and executive are not different from each other. Both are pillars of the nebulous entity called government, because that is how they govern in general.
Well,
Please, kindly tell me if I'm right or wrong in my, uh, explanation.
I don't think you're wrong. I just think it needs a little deeper clarification. One is you're always skeptical of government. You don't ever trust government, period. Number two is who's going to hold the government accountable? They have to have some sort of accountability program, and it's the courts. It's the only thing that can hold government accountable, unless you form a military coup and then build gallows outside the Parliament House and string up your elected officials. And nobody wants a coup. A lot of people are going to die. So how do you hold government accountable? It has to have an accountability model. How are you going to stop government from doing that? The courts. That's the only peaceful, viable, legal option. It's the only one. So yeah, you can say be skeptical of government, of course, in all aspects of government and life. Don't ever trust the government ever. They have violated our trust on a global scale. Don't ever trust them. Don't ever trust a politician ever. I don't care if he's your favorite politician. Don't ever trust him. Always be skeptical. Always question. Always challenge, because you need to figure out what the root is. But how do you hold a government entity, a state, or a county accountable? Courts. How do you hold individuals in government accountable? Courts. All comes back to the courts. So unless men realize we have to get our power in through the courts, we're going to lose. We're going to continue to lose. And we're going to lose on epic scales. As we've documented over 100 years, we've lost epically. Why? We haven't focused on the courts. If we start focusing on getting control of these courts, we can start having a fair and equitable division and administration of laws. That's all we're asking for. Fairness. That's it. So how do you do that? The courts. All comes back to the courts. The only other way to hold government accountable is, like I said, a military coup. It's the only other way. And a lot of people are going to die. No one wants that. Now let's come back to a legal process through the courts. I keep looking over my shoulder because I got a meeting coming up here.
No, no, sir. We are very fortunate to have your valuable time with us, and despite despite the emergency on my part, you were able to make time for our schedule. But uh, there is okay. So these are the legal solutions and remedial action that we could take. But there is also a sense of downheartedness and a sense of learned helplessness within men and boys in general. So, without dictating them or without forcing or superimposing something on them, how do we actually, uh, you know, make them go through the metamorphosis of turning a new leaf or being a little bit more uh, having some sort of inner peace, as in the Eastern ideology, as we could say, having
Hmm.
some sort of inner peace so that they would be able to trudge on their own path of their own life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Men are built differently than women. Men don't like to be defeated. When they're defeated, they live in fear, they have anxiety. If a man is wrong, he needs vindication. He needs to feel he has been championed. Right now, men don't have a champion, they have themselves. That's the only thing they got. It's because we're like this. We're five fingers on a hand, we're not a fist. And until men learn to champion each other, it's going to continue. Men are damaged. Men are destroyed by our own governments. And governments don't give a damn about you. That politician doesn't care about you. It's what you care about as a man. You care about kids or not. That's what it boils down to. Well, I don't have any kids yet. Well, I probably won't ever have any kids. What about somebody who does? What about somebody who has children? Well, I only have little girls. So do I. But I'm still out there fighting for other parents' sons. Let's hear more excuses. You can always find an excuse. You can always find somebody to find an excuse. You can always find somebody to complain. You can always find a critic, but you can't hardly find warriors. You give me five good, strong, powerful warriors, I'll rule the world. Just five. Why? One, two, three, four, five. Five. Just give me five good, strong warriors. I'll correct the courts across the globe. Across the globe. Why? It's got to start somewhere. And if it doesn't start at the epicenter of the supply chain, you're not going to be able to walk under that tree and pick that ripe fruit. So, yeah, I can understand why you champion things in India. You should. It's your country. I understand why you're saying this needs to be brought to the world stage. You're right. How's it going to get there? Obviously, advocating ain't getting you very far. How's it going to get there? We had a similar case here in the States back in the 50s. The federal government, through actions and cooperation with the U.S. military, I believe, infected black men with venereal diseases and didn't tell them. What happened? It ended up being a huge lawsuit, and the heirs of those individuals got big payouts. Now they couldn't go dig the people that did this out of a grave; they had long since passed. But it was resolved in the courts. Wow, we're back to the courts again. It was resolved in the courts. The longer it takes us to act, the longer it gives these people to escape out of the system. We need to act fast. We need to be aggressive. That's why we call it guerrilla lawfare. So we can catch them while they're in the system, while they can't escape. They can't leave the country. We'll get them, bring them back. I've often said I've got veteran brothers all over this globe. The judge feels he can change his name and leave the country. I'll find him. I'm not going to rely on the FBI. FBI here is corrupt to the core. FBI's Department of Justice. Department of Justice corrupt to the core. I can't rely on that. I'll reach into my network of brothers and say, hey, here's this guy's picture. Here was his last name. I need you to keep an eye out for him. Let me know when you find him. And when we find him, we're going to go get him. We're going to bring him back. And he's going to face trial. And we're going to get everything he owns. That's what causes corrections. When these people realize we can't act like the villain anymore, I'm not immune. I face losing all the millions of dollars I've earned through a lifetime. My kids' college tuition, my 401k, my house, my cars, my boat. My vacation home. I'm gonna lose. I risk losing all of that. Yes, you do, because you violated the civil constitutional rights. You violated federal and state law. You're gonna lose all of it. We're gonna get it. We're gonna auction all that off. We're gonna build a war chest. Why? Because men need help. Then we're gonna take aspects of that war chest and help men get their vindication. And until men realize there's a champion out there fighting for them, you will always have this problem with men. They're going to always feel defeated because there's no clear strategy or goal in place that's going to give quantifiable and measurable results that they can see. That's the flaw in the system. They keep us separated, keep us chasing shiny objects. What about this? We need to advocate that. What about this guy to advocate that? You're playing into the psyop. Great. Go chase it. Oh, yeah, that's definitely a good cause. Oh, you need a little bit of money. Go there. Go. Because they want to keep you away from the courts. They want to keep you out there chasing shiny objects, chasing that rabbit across the field. Stay away from my courts. Leave my courts alone. Leave my judges alone. Don't mess with my judges. Oh, keep them out of there. When you start messing with the judges, watch them. They're going to go, no. I guarantee you, when we start putting judges in prison, they're going to step up and they're going to say, how much money is it going to take to make you stop, Bill? How much money is it going to take? Let us know. We'll write you a check. Just quit putting my judges in jail. Nope. Not going to stop. Because as soon as you stop, as soon as you get bought out, they're going to go right back to doing it again. Why? Because they have success at doing it. They're successful because nobody is standing up and saying, we are ready for this war. We have laid the groundwork. We've got the tools and we've got the warriors ready to go to court. No one's done that. We're trying to do it. Everybody's chasing shiny objects. Go ahead and chase it. Let me know when you're tired. And they come back, I'm tired and I'm out of money. I want to help you. I'm like, you're tired and out of money. Great. Awesome. Super.
Uh, Apparently, the last question, the second, last but one question is regarding the stigma of getting pulled over by police or getting a, you know, speeding ticket or even going to the police station in the hearts and minds of the middle class all across the world. I think that America would be no exception to that as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but if that stigma is within us, how would we able because even the peers actually of a man who has been to jail or who has been incarcerated even on false charges are actually consider him as persona non grata on an individual level as well, or at least in a public setting. So actually I think that if there is some sort of removing that stigma happening, uh, how do we change the hearts and minds? Again, it comes back to the apathy within men and boys amongst themselves for one of their own. And how do we develop that intrinsic nature naturally, not through some artificial means and quotes? I mean, the guerrilla lawfare is going to do its due course, and it is going to take its due course, and we are happy and elated for that. But for on a societal level, on a social level, what do we have to do to remove the stigma regarding that? We have removed the stigma visa via homosexuality or same-sex marriage or uh, anything else in general. So, what do we have to do as men and boys to remove the stigma that if someone has been to jail or if someone has been incarcerated or imprisoned, it is not a stigma that he has been incarcerated for false charges?
Education. I mean, if you're not going to sue, which will change everybody's perception of it, then you've got to educate. I mean, I've got several published articles with the intent of educating people. And what I've noticed is people don't like to read them. A ton of research behind them, all validated. None of them have been challenged. All gone through peer review. Like I got, uh, here's one article here: judicial bias and mistreatment of fathers in family court. Why hasn't that gone global? Why hasn't that gone viral? Is because you only want to educate what you want to educate on. You don't want to educate broad spectrum. Again, chasing shiny objects, chasing shiny objects. There's no organization here, none. The data's out there. Brilliant people helped me build this, all substantive research. But you go out and do what you want to do. Good luck. How successful has that been? Yeah, that's what you have to do. Is you have to look at success. Put all this energy in it. What's the success? What can I put my hands on and hold it and go, there, I've got success. I can measure it now. Nothing. And that's why I keep coming back to the courts. I mean, it's easy to sit there and go, well, it's great to say the courts, Bill. Well, what about this? I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say the courts. And here's why. How do you stop cops from pulling you over? How do you stop false allegations? How do you stop damaging a person's reputation and getting elicited persona non grata? You sue them into abject poverty and you put them in prison for doing it. You do that a couple of times, I bet you that shit will stop. But go out and educate, go out and give them the information and data. Been doing that for 100 years. Hasn't got us anywhere. But keep doing it. Failure model.
Again, the last question would be regarding what is the message of veteran fathers in general would be for men and boys who are unaware of the worldly ways in general, or who might be a very down to earth, modest human being who might get entangled with the draconian laws and the overreach of the state. And what is the message regarding the physical and mental well-being as well as the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for men and boys in general by Veterans Fathers Organization?
Sure. Okay, last question. Men have no specifically guaranteed rights in existing legislation that's enforceable. We only have privileges. So peace and tranquility comes from knowing and understanding that and coming to terms with it. And from that, you have to look at who's going to violate your privileges. Remember, you don't have rights. And if that's a marriage or an evil woman or an evil person, then you stay away from them. You don't associate with them. And fathers ask me, well, I want a family. Well, do you want family or do you want children? Well, I want children. Hire a surrogate, get it contractually agreed upon, and you have children. You can still have a woman in your life to care for the children. There's a famous soccer player. He has 4 kids, all from surrogates. He has a girlfriend. He's never been married. There are options out there. And if you're looking to sustain your peace and tranquility, then don't expose yourself to those areas that's going to strip that from you. And understand we have no rights. We only have privileges. And from that, we have to act and administer ourselves as slaves. And once you understand that you are actually a slave, then you have to live that way. But you run that concept of being a slave for the rest of your life in front of a warrior, he refuses to take that. He now wants to go to war. That's the difference. You have to determine if you want to live your life as a peaceful slave on your knees, or if you want to stand up and become a warrior. That means you're going to be attacked. You have to make a decision how you want to live your life. Only you can do that.
On that note, I think I would end the stream, sir. It has been a fantastic conversation. I got illuminated a number of times regarding the perusal that I turned a Nelson's eye towards regarding the courts and judiciary in general. And shame upon me for doing so, because I mainly deal with that as an MRA, and making me realize something that courts could be codes could also lead us to victory in that regard. So, for reinvigorating and reigniting that spark within me, thanks a lot. And on that note, I would end the stream uh, in 3, 2, 1.